Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels episode review. This one's going to be for Season 2, Episode 12, Legends of the Lasat. And yeah, this was a pretty good episode. I actually quite liked it. I, I I was excited going into it because I felt like Zeb definitely needed some character development, and I was excited to see what they would do with the idea of him getting the reveal that there are other Lasats out there. And I think they did it quite well in that it was a pretty exciting episode overall. You know, we got a bit of Hondo at the start, and he was kind of there throughout the entire episode, just being classic Hondo, helping, hindering, getting in the way a bit, but just classic Hondo. And then they actually did some interesting emotional stuff with Zeb throughout the episode in terms of how he feels about the idea that he initially thought he was the last of the Lasan, but now the last of the Lasats, and that he failed the planet Lasan. You get reveals like the fact that Zeb is actually the captain of the Lasat High Honor Guard, which was interesting. We knew he was part of the High Honor Guard, but we didn't know he was the captain. So it gives you this idea that he was important. He was effectively one of their best warriors, but he feels like he failed. When the Empire came to Lasan, he says that there was a bomb, and that basically took him out of the fight. And when he woke up again, it was all gone, and he was saved by Kanan. So it establishes how the crew came to have Zeb on board a little bit. They don't tell you the full story, just this idea that they at some point came across the planet under attack from the Empire and ended up saving Zeb, and over time he joined the crew. So that's interesting. It still doesn't really tell us, like, did they have Sabine at that point? Like, what's the exact order of who got who? Or is Zeb actually the third member of the crew after Hera and Kanan? But yeah, there's some nice action early on in the episode as they kind of worked to get Gron and what was it, Gron and Chava out. That was definitely cool action. We got to see Hera fight a bit, and just seeing them go up against a good few stormtroopers was interesting enough. You know, they perhaps spent a little bit too much time on this when it was just like, okay, get the rescue done and focus on the character stuff you're doing here. Once we got the different Lasats introduced, you know, they don't do a massive amount in terms of characterizing Gron or Chava. The Gron especially just feels like, okay, he's part of the High Honor Guard as well, but he's not as high up as Zeb, and he just respects Zeb. But he is a warrior who also believes in the more spiritual side of the Lasat people, whereas Zeb very much seemed to go against that. That he feels that because their planet was destroyed, that what good is all this prophecy stuff? Like, none of it's true. If we had the ability to sense the future, the planet would never have been destroyed, and our people would never have fallen this low, kind of thing. Um, and, you know, through Chava, we got a little bit, you know, I don't think she's an amazing character, but, you know, just the idea that she's Force sensitive, but their people call the Force Ashla, which we've heard about before in some of the EU stuff, and it's nice to see it being brought in terms of a little bit of canon stuff, that some of the more primitive species kind of, in terms of kind of being more of a religion, spirituality type thing, they do refer to the Force as Ashla, and they use it in a different way than the Jedi, the Sith, even the Night Sisters, in the sense of it's more mystical and kind of prophetic type thing, in that they don't just get a vision of the future. They have this idea that, okay, there is a person who is going to be the child. There's a person who's going to be the warrior, and a person who's going to be the fool, and the prophecy will come true when the child saves the fool and the warrior. And they play with this, and they don't really resolve it by the end of the episode. So I assume it's going to be an ongoing thing with Zeb throughout the season. But they seem to suggest that Zeb is the child, because the prophecy is of Lasat, so it has to be a child of Lasat. They suggest that Callus is the warrior, and then the fool they don't make especially clear. The fact that Zeb even mentioned Ezra as potentially being involved makes me believe that he might be the fool. Because to give a specific like description of what each one is kind of meant to do, in that like the child acts childish and focuses more on what things could be. The warrior is like brash and like acts in a certain way, and then the fool is the one who goes against their destiny or something like that, or refuses to take up their destiny. So I think that may be what they're going for, but I'm not massively sure. I think what it's leading towards is that they're going to resolve it when we get that episode that we know is coming from the mid-season 2 trailer of Callus and Zeb on stranded on this ice planet together. That seems to be the idea, that Zeb is forced to save Callus, which is the child saving the warrior, but they don't mention the fool. So exactly who the fool is, we don't really see Ezra there. I'm not massively sure about that. So it's definitely interesting. And the only other thing on that to mention is that like Chava mentioned something along the lines of that a person over the course of their whole life at some point becomes all of them. That you're not just forever one person, one thing. And that Zeb is not always going to be the child. He will at some point be the warrior, at some point be the fool. But I suppose in this situation, they establish he's the child. And I just like that they are continuing to set up the kind of rivalry between Zeb and Callus, because they were the ones who fought over the whole situation early on in the season. I think Zeb got his bow rifle back from Callus, because Callus was the one who used that in the first place. Which, speaking of that, that was a really interesting reveal, that Zeb tends to just use it as like a fancy blaster. But it's revealed that an ancient way to use the weapon is to kind of transform it into more of this electric staff type thing. And it seems to have some sort of a spiritual element to it, and an ability to control electronics, slash be in touch with the Force. A little bit confusing as to like what exactly was going on here, in the sense of they can only find the new planet Lyrasan with the help of the child or something like that. But Zeb is not Force sensitive, but he seems to have some sort of a, using his bow rifle in that way, he's able to locate where the planet is. They were just a little bit vague about that, in the sense of like, okay, maybe it was Chava channeling the Force through Zeb that allows him to find it in the first place, and now he just forever knows where it is. There was just an element of like weirdness to everything that was going on there, especially like the moment where he like jams the staff into the floor, and he's able to control the ghosts and like all of the equipment on board the Ghost to guide it through that kind of star cluster, I think they called it. Because I'm like, okay, they seem to suggest that it can control electronics, okay, but how does Zeb just in his mind know coordinates to this planet just because they looked at the star map and he knows where the planet is? It was just a little odd. I assume there's more to come, and because it involves a kind of prophecy, it kind of suggests that Zeb is more than just the guy we know he is, and he has something to him. But it could have been explained a little bit better in my mind. Yeah, there was that, and just the idea that Callus like let them go. That he was like, okay, that they're going in there, they're gonna get themselves killed. We'll back off, survive another day. You guys go with that. There was also some nice music actually along with that scene as they were going into that kind of star cluster. It was very different than a lot of the music we get in Star Wars. Different than the Clone Wars music, which was different anyway, and then Rebels has tended to stick more towards the actual like soundtracks of the movies. But this was very different. I quite liked it actually. It fit the scene, but it was a big kind of shift in terms of different music. So that was interesting. But yeah, the reveal at the end of the episode, of course, is that they find Lyrasan thanks to Zeb guiding them there, and he goes there to basically bring Chava and Gron to the planet, and he comes back and it's revealed that he's going to stick with the Ghost crew, but he's happy because Lyrasan is the original home of the Lasat. So that's where they came from. And the planet Lasan is something that happened later on. And that the species is going to continue, it's going to be fine. And because the system Lyrasan was in wild space, effectively the Ghost Crew are the only people who know where the planet is. So it's always going to be this kind of safe system they can go to if they need to escape. I assume that might be set up for like the end of the season, perhaps. If they need to make a big getaway, they can go to this location that no one knows where it is except the Ghost Crew. I did like the mention of wild space. They they might have referenced it once or twice in the Clone Wars, but I think this is the first time we've actually said okay, we're going to wild space. We're going to effectively chart out a new system here, which was nice to see. But yeah, the big emotional journey for Zeb in the episode is that he blames himself to some degree for not being kind of strong enough to, save his people, save the planet, and he just has to kind of accept that and accept some of the faith of his people and be able to kind of guide them to the future, because the whole kind of idea for most of the episode is that he doesn't want to get involved in all this chanting stuff, the hope of a new planet, because so much bad has happened that he doesn't want another disappointment. But he has to just trust that his people are spiritual for a reason, that it's there. And I like the scene with him and Ezra, where you can really see that beyond their constant arguments, that they are actually friends. They do actually get along at certain points. Ezra consoling Zeb about the full extent of what he's been through, that Ezra's upset because he's obviously lost his parents. He's recently found out that they're dead. But Zeb has lost most of his people. And that's much tougher, a much tougher thing to have to deal with. Yeah, that was a quite interesting little emotional journey they had Zeb go on in the episode. He's not often been the character who's gone through serious development or even had emotional moments, but this was quite well done for the character you probably least expected of. So I'm happy about that, and I'm glad that we are getting another episode to kind of, I assume, resolve this prophecy thing and kind of go somewhere with that. But I think that's about all there is to the episode. We just end in that kind of nice position. There's still Callus versus Zeb to come. He has hope for his people now that he knows that the species is no danger of dying out. Their planet is hidden basically in wild space, and he knows he can always return if he needs to. There's a hope for, I suppose, his future and stuff like that. So, good episode. I don't think it was the best episode of the season, but it was solid. It just, like I've said in recent episode, it's like, okay, these are good episodes, but given some of the stuff we saw in that trailer, I just want to get there as soon as possible. I think the next episode coming up is The Call. We don't exactly know what that call is. I'm potentially thinking it might be the Yoda episode, but I'm not fully sure. So we'll see what exactly is coming next week. But other than that, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.